Hey everybody, what's up? So imagine this scenario. You are a capital G gamer like myself. You are sitting there watching the latest Jeff Keighley CGI extravaganza. And then all of a sudden, it's a mysterious trailer. You don't know exactly what it is. It kind of looks like this one game that you've been really wanting a sequel or a reboot to. It's all CGI, nothing in game. Of course it isn't. And then it's revealed. It's game number 14, I guess. You loved game number 13. Game number 13 was your shit back in the day. So you are ungodly excited. But that's all you get. No gameplay, no release date, no extra details, no platforms, nothing like that. All you get is just a blank slate to say, hey, we're doing something. Applaud us. And the best part is, you're gonna have to wait 8 fucking years. Game number 14 is gonna be so epic, so fucking huge, that your grandkids are gonna be bringing your ashes to its midnight release. That's many a scenario that seems to be happening, at least in modern gaming today. Games are getting announced way too early. And they're like, early. Like, these games are barely even being made at the time they're getting announced, it seems like. From what I can tell, and this is just from a lowly guy making videos on the internet, it seems like a company gets a concept down, put a design doc together, they get a story outline, they kind of lay down what the visuals are going to be, they kind of lay down what the basic gameplay is going to be, but instead of waiting until they actually have something to show in terms of the actual game, which is not going to be for years at that point, companies just decide to put out this big, fancy CGI trailer with all the bells and whistles of what they think is going to be in the game. Just announce it to the public saying, hey, we're making this. It's gonna be great. When it eventually comes out, we don't know when that is. We have no fucking clue when that is, but just know we're making it. And it's not really been a problem in the past, it seems like, because games used to not take as long to make as they do now. I mean, like back in the 80s, it only took like a couple months to a year to make a game. In the 90s, it maybe took like a year or two, maybe more, to make a game if it was really big. 2000s, when HD gaming started to happen, it got longer. But now that we're in this, I guess, HD era or the 4K era or whatever you want to call it now that we're in the 9th generation of games are so detailed and so feature rich and so much stuff just crammed into it that much more time is needed to get the games out the door. And because of that, of course, waits get much longer. You can wait until there's something actually to show for a game and then actually release it and have people excited about what the game's actually going to be. But no, for some odd reason, they just want to get these games announced as early as possible to draw the wait out as much as possible, it seems like, and just drive gamers insane. Waiting for these games for a long time is frustrating. That's what I'm trying to say. It's getting worse with how much bigger games are getting nowadays. Games are taking much longer. I can think of a few infamous examples right now. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 took 5.5 years from announcement to release. Starfield is also taking over 5 years from announcement to release of that game. Fable 4 could potentially be 5 years. That was announced back in 2020. I don't think they've given a release date yet, so looking like maybe 2024 or 2025 for that game. Star Wars Eclipse, if the rumors are true, that game could take potentially 8 years to come out. Cyberpunk infamously took 8 years to come out, even though, honestly, it should have been a longer wait based on what we got. Final Fantasy 15, which originally was a whole different game, took 10 years to come out. The Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take 100 years to come out, let's just admit it. Beyond Good and Evil 2 will take a number that is not yet comprehended by modern humans years. Mass Effect Reboot is going to take, please dear God, say something years. Being a gamer nowadays, you gotta have a lot of patience. But I was just recently thinking, why are they doing this? Why are they announcing these games so early when they know that it's going to take many years for this thing to come out? So I did some research on it, and so I went out to do some Chad Gamer research. And in my super academic research, I found 5 main reasons as to why it seems that they're doing this. And I guess I slightly understand a little bit more now, but not to the point where I think it's okay. Mainly because I'm butthurt about some of these stuff, okay? I'm personal bias here. So let's go over these 5 different reasons. Number 1, leaks. It's like Niagara Falls out there! With the internet being as big as it is, and, you know, people being how they are, especially at the biggest game companies, leaks are just gonna happen. There's nothing really you can do to stop it.
There's Streisand on line 1.
As long as a game is being developed and someone wants a little bit of clout online, especially with this work from home stuff now and files being shared online so people can work from home on these private servers. The leaks that happened with GTA 6 being an infamous example of that. Anything can get accessed and anything can get leaked. And so to get ahead of leaks, people just go ahead and announce saying, hey, we're working on this. There's no need to be speculating on it or doing big old leaks about company secrets anymore. Now, this really only applies to these really big game companies, really, because those are the ones that people really only care about. So big game companies, I guess, see this as a benefit of announcing games early to get ahead of leaks. Number 2 is preventing cancellation.
Approved.
One of the most devastating feelings that you can get as just a human in general is something that you are really excited about and you're really anticipating gets canceled, whether it be economic factors, development factors, staffing problems, stupid, greedy execs who have too much money to do anything with. That is one of the worst feelings ever. You'll never get to experience it unless some miracle happens and someone else picks it up. And in that case, it's very unlikely. Star Wars fans, how's 1313? I hope you're enjoying that game. That's awful. That's a sting. But if a game is already announced out in the public while it's still early in development and there's a risk of cancellation, you risk everyone who is excited about that game getting disappointed, and you can alienate your fans beyond repair. Plus, a lot of people have already invested time and energy and money into this game, like investors in the company, like especially if you're a public company. It doesn't make your company look good, especially on your books. To have much higher stakes when it comes to canceling a game, people are going to get their games out there, so people at least know of these games. So if push comes to shove and there's a risk of cancellation, there is a much higher price to pay. Number 3 is recruiting people and business partners. As quoted from the most reliable man on the earth, Randy Pitchford,
let me show you a card trick.
when your in-development project is known, some activities, including recruiting and attracting business partners or other activities, become much easier than when you were silent under the radar. So when you're trying to make a game early on in development, sometimes there's not a lot of people on the project. It needs some more people to get the game going. And you've probably seen an article or two over the years saying that, oh, this game company posted a job listing for a person who can do open world, first person, active multiplayer. Oh my god, they're looking for a very specific thing, and they say it's for an unannounced project, and gaming sites report on that because they need something to talk about. And so when a game is already announced, you can go ahead and start actively recruiting people without trying to hide what you're doing. Also, business partnerships. It leaves more time for marketing deals and business deals and partnerships to be set up way in advance to have a bigger marketing push and a bigger financial input. I meant the word investment. I apologize. Don't cancel me. Reason number 4 is the uncertainty of game development nowadays. Like I keep on saying, games are taking much longer to make now, much more detail, much more content being packed into one package. And when you're starting to develop a game, it's not really certain when a game is going to come out. A lot of times when games start development, they don't even have the slightest clue of when the game is going to come out. Sometimes people announce a game is coming out during a certain time and eventually have to delay it. Even when you get closer to a certain release date, it becomes uncertain because of multiple different factors. So pretty much all AAA games nowadays have to get delayed at some point, whether it be like a week or two, or a month or two, or even longer. Even if they get delayed, sometimes when they come out, no, sir. So game development is very uncertain. Pretty much nowadays, I don't listen to any firm release dates that companies give because I always know they're going to be changed. You can announce the game, they think it's going to come out at a certain time. It turns out they're going to have to restart development or change things drastically, and it takes much, much longer to come out. So there's that. But reason number 5 is money, baby! Woo! Of course, it's money. It's always about money. If you announce the game real early and draw the weight out, there is a huge potential for hype to build up from that. You can build hype to unseen levels of fuckery. Since it's taken so long, it's gonna be like the best game ever made. It has to be. It has to be. It has to be. You got a lot of people following news about the game on Twitter or whatever, which leads to a lot of pre-orders, people buying the game when it comes out, and, you know, quality aside, if your game is shit and you sell 5 million copies in its first week, you still got that 5 million copies sold.
And the fun part is they don't put the reviews out before the game releases, like Cyberpunk. They didn't let people review that game before it came out. No, you can't do that.
They can't know the game is shit. So those are the main reasons why game companies seem to announce these games so early, at least in my research. If there's another reason to work in the industry or whatever, you can tell me down in the comments. And I got great news for you. It's gonna get even worse. Games are gonna be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There is going to be so much more detail added, so much more content added to these games as they keep on growing and growing. Graphical detail becomes more and more high res, and more time needs to be put in to making these high res detailed graphics. Much more time is going to be needed for these games. Like hell, probably games for the PlayStation 6 need to start development like right now, if they want to come out in the generation. It seems like a lot of games that were announced for this generation, like in the first year of it back in 2020, are not going to be coming out until later in the generation, if not at the very end of it, like Star Wars Eclipse or Elder Scrolls. You may see the majority of the games announced when the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox comes out until the end of the generation. And knowing how game companies are, again, their most important reason why they do it is money. They are going to keep doing it as long as it keeps making them money. So you have that to look forward to. Have fun. In my honest opinion, I think the disadvantages outweigh the advantages of announcing a game early, at least in my opinion. From a gamer who has to wait for these games, the drawbacks outweigh the benefits. One, it doesn't necessarily save it from cancellation. There's plenty of games that got canceled and they announced pretty early, and it didn't save them from cancellation. Scalebound being the most infamous example. That was announced back at E3 2014. That was a partnership between Xbox and Platinum Games. That was pretty hyped because of the amount of marketing they put behind it. There was a lot of push behind that game. There was a lot of excitement behind that. But it got canceled anyway. Development turmoil was just too much for that game, so it had to shut down. Fable Legends, another example. That game was announced pretty early on in the generation, but they decided to close the entire studio that the game was being worked at. Star Wars game that was being made at Visceral, whatever the hell that was going to be. They just showed one little clip of it and shut down the whole studio a couple of years later. Not even a game being announced early can save your entire studio. That is how much of a kind of nothing that can be. You think these companies give a shit? No, they don't. Also, drawing out the wait for your games can frustrate your fans beyond belief, to the point where it can alienate a lot of people. For example, what is in the background back there? I was ecstatic over the moon for Kingdom Hearts 3. This whole channel was dedicated to talking about Kingdom Hearts 3 news at some point. It was a drawn-out wait for that game. There was years between updates, and because of that, fans got a little frustrated. There was jokes being made online about how long it's taken to make. It became a meme, and it made the wait that much more infuriating. And when the game finally came out, the amount of expectations that these people had for this one game could never have been met. They thought this game was going to be the best thing that mankind has ever created, and who knows, it possibly is, depending on your opinion. It made a lot of people salty. See, salty. And I know a lot of people who do not like that game, and I think a big contributing factor to that was the amount of expectations that they put into this game from waiting for it over the years. People can just get bored, too. Like, hey, this game is not coming out for a long time. I'm going to focus on games that are actually coming out here soon, and I don't have to draw my weight out for. So when a game finally gets updates, there could be a lot of hype initially, but then people just get bored of it again, and they don't really care to follow it anymore. It can kill momentum if you draw the weight out a little too long and updates are a little too sparse. Like, I think the Perfect Dark game, I don't know how people feel about that right now. The only update that we really got on that game is that Crystal Dynamics is having to step in and help out with the development of that game. And that's not a good sign. It's either way too big or you're not able to handle it by yourself. Not great news in the interim, if I do say so myself. So drawing the weight out can alienate fans. It can make expectations way too damn high.
The expectation. It's too damn high.
You can hype this game to the moon and promise all this stuff, and when you ultimately don't deliver, because 90% of the time these games don't deliver on the astronomical expectations, it can kill a game. So when a game that has been hyped to the moon for years and years is not a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, news spreads fast. A lot of people, I think, are really hesitant to get a game when it first releases now, because it either comes out broken, messy, or just not that great. They wait for a lot of the general consensus to come out from other people before they buy a game, and at least that's what I do. Or wait for updates to make it eventually good, because that seems the cycle nowadays. Just look at the movie industry. Rotten Tomatoes can kill a movie. If you have a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, it can really kill your movie, especially if you put a lot of investment into it. That's another comparison that I think we need to make. Movies. Movies are announced right when they start development. Why is that different? Movies are a much different development cycle than games. There is a very set schedule of what has to happen in order for movies to get made. It has been a little messy over the years and things get delayed in that too. But a lot of times they have firm release dates like the day that is going to come out years in advance. Games are a much more speculative industry and a much more speculative cycle of how these things get made. Movie studios have that shit down to a T at this point. Not to say that games have to adhere to that, because they're a completely different thing. They're completely different. They're two separate things. But I think movies have a more defined system. A lot of game companies do think the risk is worth it though, because it gets a high reward if the game comes out and you don't drive people insane with the wait. It turns out to be great, and you get to reap all the rewards of that. But there's lots of downsides to it, and as a fan of a game, it can be really, really infuriating, and it can be really, really discouraging for me just seeing this game kind of exist and just wanting it to exist and not being able to play it for a long time. In my honest opinion, it is much better for me as a fan to be able to wait shorter for a game that is announced, kind of wait in the wings thinking like, oh, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it or not? Honestly, that is much preferable to knowing that a game is in development and having the wait drawn out and driving me insane, not knowing when it's gonna come out. And who knows, maybe we'll get used to it. And maybe we'll get adjusted to this new announcement release cycle and it will all equal itself out. But as it continues to get worse, I think people will just get more and more frustrated. You know how they're praising single-player games nowadays? When a single-player game comes out, people are over the moon about it because they kind of have to be in order for these shitty multiplayer pay-to-win games to kind of go out. They have to hype these things up to the moon. Maybe at some point we'll do that for games that are announced in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know. That's the reason why they're doing it. Maybe you'll understand them a bit more, and maybe just think of the CEOs next time, man, when you're trying to bash someone for announcing these games too early. Who's gonna buy them their next Bugatti? So, tell me down in the comments below what you guys think of this. Do you think games are getting announced too early? Also, make sure to subscribe, like this video, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord server, show notifications. It's really awesome if you did. This has been Matt, and I will see you guys in the next video, whatever that's gonna be. So yeah,